Hi, everybody. We're just letting people in here. Very welcome to today's event. And we'll be handing you over to Manka, who will introduce us properly. But let me take a moment to just warmly welcome you all for taking time out on your lunch to come and meet us here on the platform. We have a lovely lineup ready for you. So looking forward to discussing with you at the end as well.
Okay, I think we can start. So hello everybody and welcome to the workshop Bringing Nature-Based Solutions into Urban Landscapes. First, just let you know that the event will be recorded. This event is organized for the Urban Landscapes community members on the Nature-Based Enterprise platform established by Connecting Nature project. And this is the first event for such an audience. The community members are more or less NBS enterprises. So this event aims to get to know who the members of this community are and how can we all collaborate. Of course, everyone else who is interested in this topic of NBS enterprises for urban landscapes is also very welcome at this event. The ambassador of this community are Roisin Byrne, landscape architect, who will be also a discussant speaker at the workshop, and Barbara Guličnik-Marušić and I, Manca Drimmel, from the Urban Planning Institute of the Republic of Slovenia. Barbara and I will moderate this event. Our guest speakers are Moin Nodei from Nature-Based Enterprise Bioautonomy and David Benjamin from Nature-Based Enterprise Aqua Naturae. We have one more discussant speaker. This is Živa Ravnikar from a research. She's a researcher from the University of Deusto. First, I give the floor to Barbara Guličnik-Marušić. She will provide a frame for presenters with some relevant findings on the relation of NBS and urban planning and design, referring to the urban landscape as a place. Barbara, please.
Thank you, Manca, and hello, everyone. So the frame of today's workshops, I'd like to share with you a few thoughts reflecting one of our researches we've just done recently, addressing the relations between nature-based solutions and their breakthrough to urban planning and design, especially how to inform policymaking and legislation preparation from bottom-up perspective. So from actual provision of solutions. So this was the topic of our research, and it showed that there are various documents prepared at the European level, as you all know, which address the nature-based solutions as a phenomenon as well as a concept, either directly or indirectly, also including their relations with the ideas of circularity, such as circular economy, circular cities idea, zero waste concept, and so on. However, we find out that there are still gaps in implementation of these ideas in practical planning documents, and the interpretations that are recognized are mostly still related to nature-based solutions as ecosystem services and nature-based solutions like provision of green, sometimes blue-green infrastructure, which is absolutely great. But we want to share with you and want to show that nature-based solutions are much more than that. So this is what we want to stress for today's starting point, which is that it is also important to note that nature is made up of both living and non-living things in nature. Especially this is important in urban planning. Physical world processes, for example, are also parts of nature. Geological processes, matter and energy processes. In that sense, properties of the location, which is the core of urban planning, actually are very much important. For example, natural ventilation by wind flow, local materials availability and their use, uh, shading because of steepness of the location, for example, or orientation of existing or planned built structure. These are all the relevant issues which can be addressed by the nature-based solutions or can be recognized as the potentials how and where to apply nature-based solutions. So at that point, I would just like to invite to our first guest coming from Bioautonomy and to share with us the visions, practices, also other experiences. So Moin, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Ask you if you can give me permission to share my screen.
Yeah, you have permission, Moeen.
I have it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming here and taking your time. My name is Moin Nodehi. I am the founder of Bioautonomy, where we develop nature-based solutions for specifically architect and construction projects. My background is basically I've been working in the conventional architectural and construction industry. And from there, I realized how destructive it is the way we're developing our societies. And I decided to dive deeper into nature-based solution and learn how to implement that in buildings and make buildings operate on nature's infrastructures rather than the human-based infrastructure. So basically today, most of the concepts that we're developing out there, even the concepts that we call sustainable building, green buildings, passive houses, most of these are relying on human-made infrastructure to operate. It can be for energy, water, sewage treatment, etc. The essential services that our buildings use. So we can clearly see today that the infrastructure are causing a lot of environmental issues, which is also a threat to our safety on this planet. So we are presenting and introducing the idea of developing and designing buildings that operate mainly with nature-based solution. So instead of trying to build an infrastructure for transporting water and cleaning sewage, we can look at how nature does all of these. So what we did was that we went and we started investigating how ancient civilizations were able to develop societies and live comfortably on this planet without relying on any human-made infrastructure. So in our research, we find a lot of interesting methods, and we started using those methods and integrating that with nature solutions together with modern technologies and materials. And we're able to develop buildings that operate completely independently from human-made infrastructure and instead interact with the infrastructure of the natural world. So bioautonomy today focuses on bringing in the design language of nature from the early on from projects. We help from an early stage to take the right decisions in order to develop these buildings, to develop holistic solutions for architecture. The services that we provide are architecture design and architecture consultation. We also go into building these buildings ourselves. So far, most of the project that we develop is being built by ourselves. And we also offer education. As we're speaking, we're developing an online academy, a bioautonomy academy, where we can teach people from all over the world how to implement these nature-based solutions in their own projects. But also every project that we construct, we invite people to come and learn hands-on from us how to do it. Also for urban areas, we've also have a specific service where we develop vertical ecosystems, vertical garden, and we implement some of our solutions into that with, for example, recycling gray water. So the main nature-based solutions that we offer for architecture and construction projects are following. So the first one is that we have a method of making buildings naturally heat and cool themselves. Of course, this is very dependent on what climate you are in. But in general, the way it works is that instead of designing our buildings depending on external energy, we integrate thermal mass. We basically create a natural way of storing temperatures inside these buildings. And it can be warm or cold temperatures, depending on your climate. And with this method, we do not use any electrical or mechanical components, completely based on physics and common sense. And then we have natural ventilation system that actually is very much inspired from the ancient methods of how ancient civilizations were able to keep their buildings out in the desert cool and comfortable. And we studied those civilizations, and we've seen that most of them, what they do is they take the hot air from outside and they dig down air channels and have the air go under the ground where the temperatures are cool, and cool the air naturally. And when it enters the building, they enter with comfortable, cool temperatures. So we basically simplify that and implement that in our designs. And then water is a big issue today. So what we do is that we design our buildings, the roof and the landscape in such a way that every time it rains, and even in areas where it snows, we collect that water into underground tanks where we then filter it. We have our own filtration system where we filter the water all the way to clean and drinkable water. So the houses and the buildings are able to produce their own water. And this is also very much mimicked from how ancient civilizations were doing it and how nature filters water. And then we also deal with the buildings on sewage. What we do is that instead of throwing the sewage like most buildings do out in nature, we actually reuse the sewage 4 times in our buildings. It's first used by human beings for sanitation, and then that water goes automatically to a greenhouse zone where we use plants to clean the gray water. And then we recapture that water again and use it for a third time to flush the toilet with. And then that black water is later captured again and reused for a fourth time to help to restore ecosystems outside in the landscape. And that also allows us to create an indoor food production system. And all our buildings produce their own electricity with solar and wind power. So today we are developing different standard models for different climates, everything from cold to tropical. So people can choose certain models that they can also come and visit, but we also offer custom design buildings as well. Here are two projects I'm going to present that we had the honor to be part of. This is a project that was recognized by the United Nations, the UN Habitat, as one of the top 20 innovative solutions that contributes to the Sustainable Development Goals. And this was in a collaboration with a local NGO, where it also was a conflict resolution program where we worked with refugees and local people to develop this building. And then we were also lucky to be part of this project where we developed the first autonomous school in South America, and it won a prize for it. And all the solutions that I just explained are integrated in this building, and the children were part of it to build this school. And in the school, they're learning and managing all these principles of the building. So today we are based in Spain, in Europe, and here we're working on a lot of different projects. But one of our projects I wanted to share with all of you is that we want to create the world's first educational and research center for nature-based solutions that focuses on development projects, where we bring in nature-based projects on this piece of land, and we use it as an opportunity to do research, but also to educate and help more people to implement these solutions. And I just want to show a quick video of that project. So thank you, everyone. That's my 10 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity. And please, you can find more information on our website, and you can join us on all our social media platforms if you want to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Moin, for this presentation. Our next speaker is David Benjamin from Aquanature. Please, David, share with us your experiences and your views on the NBS.
Okay, thanks. All right, can you bring up the presentation, Fiona? Thanks.
Okay, David, is that okay?
Yeah, great. Okay, so we're a firm based near Oslo, Norway, and the firm Aquanature has a lot of its technology and design methods from a firm in the United States that I'm also the co-owner of, which is called John Todd Ecological Design in Massachusetts, USA. And next slide. So you see the two logos of the firm. I'm a co-owner of both firms. Aquanature is the Norwegian firm, John Todd Ecological Design, the American firm. And we produce a whole suite of services all the way from charrettes and stakeholder engagement to engineering and design of nature-based solutions for water treatment and ecological restoration and integration of agroforestry projects in circular economies and industrial ecology. It should be mentioned that a lot of this work started from the original work of Howard Odum in the United States, Katha Seidel from the Max Planck Institute in 1974 built the first modern example of nature-based solutions with a wastewater treatment project in Philadelphia in 1974 that cleansed wastewater in a greenhouse in the city of Philadelphia with plants and mycelium. Okay, next slide. So this is just a slide to remind us of where we get our inspiration from for nature-based solutions. This is Bahamas seen from the International Space Station. Next slide. So the problems we're working on basically center around the destruction of nature and climate change and the difficulties that conventional engineering for water flows presents because conventional engineering uses too much energy and chemicals and physical movement to process wastewaters, for example. But there are nature-based solutions that eliminate or vastly reduce that energy use in chemicals. And so our challenge is to get the engineering community and the policymakers to scale up the use of nature-based solutions. Next slide. So the benefits of nature-based solutions is not only that you can process water and do ecological restoration and the integration of agroforestry into circular economies much easier, but you can also produce landscapes and the interiors of buildings that are beautiful and that people find healthy to experience, both in terms of their senses and in terms of the effect it has on their cognitive capability and their health, just from an aesthetic viewpoint. Next slide. So this is our value proposition. We don't need to go into that. You can go to the next slide. So a lot of the technical design in detail that these systems use for industrial pollutants or water management, both for gray water and black water for fecal matter from toilets, it's based on a cellular design that often uses tank-based water flows and connected to a hybrid, often out in the landscape of constructed wetlands, especially for sludge management. And these tank-based systems used ecological fluidized beds that are these hanging screens in the tank. And we use all 8 kingdoms of life in these tanks to process water, and they're very often recirculating tanks. And these tank-based systems can go all the way from, for example, 100 cubic meters per day, all the way up to 3.5 to 4 million liters per day that we built systems for. We can design systems that go even larger. And these systems were patented over 25 years ago, and we know they work because they've been tested by the United States Environmental Protection Agency and verified by their testing laboratories. Next slide. So these are 2 of the patents that the firm in the United States has. Of course, after 17 years, the patents have run out, but we still use a lot of this technology, and we've developed the technology further from these patents right up to today. Next slide. So we also use a kit of parts method to build these machines, which means that they're modular and they can be prefabricated. The picture on the slide on the left is a prefabricated food waste processor that uses nature-based solutions in these 2 glass tanks that look like aquaria. And we can process waste This was built for the 2011 USGBC conference and trade show, and the United States Green Building Council. And we can produce compost from food waste in 24 to 32 hours with this machine. And it's completely safe, and it doesn't have toxic bacteria or viruses in it. Next slide. So we produce all these different values to our stakeholders, and we can model them, the benefits and the co-benefits. Also in terms of the monetary benefits, net present value modeling. Next slide. So these are some of the collaborations that we have ongoing and that we built projects for, and including educational work that I've done, for example, for the Ann Arbor Public Schools and educational environmental centers in North America. Next slide. So this is an example of one of the projects we've worked on where we were called in because an old historical industrial canal in Massachusetts was not able to build a conventional remediation system for buried hydrocarbons in the sediment of this canal. And one of the people who's participating here took part in a workshop for professionals that we ran to educate landscape architects and other professionals in how to build these kind of systems. And we want to build these systems and do these kind of educational workshops in Europe too. So the client who had bought this canal and other buildings on the land next to this industrial canal in Massachusetts, USA, he couldn't build a conventional system because of the historic monuments in the canal and on land. And so he called us in because we were able to build a system in the canal and a small greenhouse on land that, it's still ongoing. We're able to pick up 95% of the bunker sea oils in the sediment without dredging it. And it's cleaned by bacterial systems inoculated on plants that hang down vertically into the water stream, the water column, and it's also cleaned by mycelium in this land-based greenhouse that I'll show you a picture of. Next slide. So on the left, you see the merd, which is the planted merd, and where the plants are hanging down into the water column, inoculated by bacteria. And those are very specific indigenous plants that we chose, also some of them flowering. And on the right-hand side, you see a first build greenhouse with the mycelium in it that's processing and polishing the water and doing a lot of the denitrification and nitrification. And the greenhouse has a very, very low emission of nitrogen and CO2. We want to work on building a, shining up the greenhouse and making it a little better. Right now it's plexiglass, but that's one of the things that we're working on, and we're inviting partners to help us build prefabricated greenhouses that will be less energy intensive in northern climates. Next slide. So this is another project we built. On the photograph you see on the left, that's a canal in 2000 in Fuzhou, China. A lot of the canals in some parts of urban areas of China they're pretty much open sewers. You can see toilet paper on the surface. We were called in by the mayor of the city of Fuzhou, and we built a floating park with these floating inoculated planted merds in the canal. And now the water is safe enough that you can put your hand in there without getting sick. The project was finished in 2002. It's still operating. And now people of the city can actually go down into the canal, walk on this walkway, and use the place as a park with clean water. The coliform and the BOD is now at a level where it's safe. Before, the BOD was 350 to 400, which was really dangerous. Next slide. So this is another picture of the prefabricated eco machine at the 2011 USDBC. Next slide. This is a project we built in 2004 to 2006 with Biomimicry South Africa in an informal village called Langroep in the Western Cape Province in South Africa. And it's near, the village is near the Berg River. And there was a lot of pollution from gray water and black water flowing into the Berg. And the people were threatened with that they had to move because they were polluting the Berg River. So we were called in by Biomimicry South Africa to collaborate with them on building a gray water treatment system. And what we built are eco machines based in a percolating community street in the village. And these eco machines are basically trees with their roots, and we inoculate them with a certain indigenous bacteria and mycelium in the roots. And when we connect up these tree points, these nodes, with gravel-filled subsurface channel, the water is cleansed and we can send it to the river sink, and it's of a high enough quality that it doesn't disturb the ecosystem in the riparian habitat of the river. Next slide. So there are challenges to doing this in many countries in Europe, especially in the Nordic, very cold climate and Arctic climates. And so to do nature-based solutions in the Arctic climates, it's difficult, but not impossible, because we have built systems in Toronto and Montreal. Montreal has a colder climate actually than Oslo. So we know it is possible to build treatment systems for gray and black water and nature-based solutions for industrial ecologies in northern climates. But it does require some difficult work in getting this work to be scaled up and accepted by many in the engineering and policymaking community in the cold climates. Next slide. We really think that it's going to require all hands on deck and a community effort to scale up these solutions, especially in northern climates. And that's one of the things we're also interested in, is inviting partners to work with us and build a community of practitioners and policymakers to scale up the use of nature-based solutions. And this effort of connecting nature is certainly a big help for that. I'm focused mostly with this firm on working to get this scaling up effort going in the northern climates. Next slide. So this is another example of what you can do for ecosystem restoration. This is a creek that was damaged for many years in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's the Chattanooga Creek, and it was damaged by 20, 30 different dangerous chemicals on the EPA red list. And it was, all these chemicals emanated from an old historic coal processing plant near Chattanooga. And we put floating merits in there with a greenhouse, and we were able to clean up the creek water to a safe level where the hundreds of species began to come back into the creek. And now, as of 2019, the creek has been declared by the EPA as it's restored. And so the merits that we built, they were able to be decommissioned and removed. And now the creek is open, and you don't see our system because our system worked. Okay, next slide. So this is another system at a completely different scale. This is you doing 8.5 million liters per day of high BOD waste from chicken waste from Tyson chicken. The system was decommissioned because Tyson left the plant. They no longer needed the system because the plant moved away from the region. but we were originally called in by Tyson and the EPA because they were polluting the Chesapeake Bay. But it's an example anyway that shows that you can build systems at a very large scale to process millions of liters a day of high BOD waste, and you can actually save money by doing so because these systems use a very low power for oxygenation. This whole system was about, I think, 10 horsepower. Okay, next slide.
Sorry,
So
David,
we also
we are not on time, so please.
Oh, okay, all right. So go to the last slide. Okay, so that's our contact information, and we work with the whole group of different people in Europe. Gianluigi Misti is a modeler of complex fluid dynamics, and Ellen Sørensen is a landscape architect in Norway. Raul Sanchez is an engineer at Cartif in Spain, and my name is David Benjamin. I'm an architect. I'm the one who's working on upscaling this work in Europe, and Anna Maria Okernes is an expert in permaculture and circular economy, and she's also a partner in the firm. Okay, and all our contact information is on the slide, and thank you for your attention, and I look forward to talking to everybody who's on the webinar. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you, David. Now I would like to invite our discussant speaker, Živa Ravnikar from the University of Deusto, to comment on the NBS from a microclimate aspect. Živa, please.
Hi. Yes, I'm Živa, and thank you for this opportunity to present my point of view on microclimate. I would love to refer to the microclimate as an important aspect because it's really place related. And in the next 5 minutes, I will make a short introduction why it is important to consider microclimate within spatial planning process and what is the relation within NBS concept. Okay, I'm sure you all already know that microclimate is a really distinctive climate of a small scale area, which can vary within even 10 meters. So it's really locally based, and usually is defined with parameters such as wind, air temperature, relative humidity, solar radiation, and so on. And within my research, I'm also interested in air quality and level of noise, since those parameters as well have an effect on outdoor experience and perceived quality of space. Okay, those parameters I just mentioned are really dependent on different dynamic variables. So microclimate is dependent on local weather, urban topography, urban morphology, and as well on anthropogenic activities such as traffic concentration and also land use patterns. And since microclimate can have a significant impact on human comfort and of course consequently on people's presence in outdoor spaces, climatology knowledge should be an integral part of spatial planning processes. Although the challenges related to climate change and quality of the environment and well-being of the society have become mainstream in different research areas. However, according to most of the literature, urban microclimate and urban development disciplines are still not sufficiently connected in the practice of urban development. And even though the widespread inclusion of environmental objectives in urban plans could provide an opportunity for the incorporation of urban climate knowledge into the planning processes, according to literature, this has not yet generated an applied climatology where a clear link between design decision and climate outcomes would be considered in urban development processes. And also I would love to point out one interesting research done by Eliasson. She was researching how urban planners, practitioners are including climate knowledge in their work practice. And she concluded that although climatic factors are often an integral part of environmental and comfort aspect of spatial planning, however, are not necessarily perceived to be important as themselves. Therefore, urban planners participating in her research often consider climatic aspects in their work progress, but without being aware of it. So what does NBS concept have? What is the role within microclimate aspect? The potential of NBS concept is that it addresses space by targeting a particular environmental challenge and at the same time offering the practical spatial solution, considering also local specific context, dynamics, and natural processes. And in that sense, NBS can very much affect the microclimate conditions on specific areas. And this can be done by designing solutions which bases on certain natural processes. And these processes, of course, have an effect on human comfort. I'm talking about processes like evapotranspiration, cooling, deposition of particular matter. And if I refer to the previous speakers, I can agree that it's important to consider local characteristics and natural processes. And microclimate aspect can be addressed also with the form of the built environment. I'm talking about orientation of buildings, which, as Barbara already mentioned, can influence the wind ventilation or shading. And I agree with Moeen that in one way, this idea of deriving from nature and environment, it's not really a new one. However, nowadays, this aspect is still often neglected. But yes, if we fully understand NBS comprehensive approach, that means that NBS should be considered in an early stages of designing the built environment, and we should understand NBS beyond just screening the space. This is it from my side, and when it will be time for open up the discussion, my question for the previous speakers is how directly do you include microclimate or climate aspect within your work? Within your project, do you think of climate outcomes within design decision? What I mean is, do climate outcomes such as, I don't know, cooling or improved air quality of your solution happens as a consequence or as a design decision? Thank you.
Yeah, so.
Thank you, Ziva. Now I would like to invite our next speaker, Roisin Byrne, the ambassador of the urban landscape community. Roisin.
Thank you. Thanks, Fiona. Again, welcome, and what wonderful speakers. Thank you so much, Moleen, David, and Ziva. Like our speakers, I'm very concerned with COP26 and the outcome tracker saying we're on track for 2.4. And as NBEs, nature-based enterprises, can we do better and help our transitioning? And next slide, please. So we know that we NBEs are good at co-creating space with our communities, and this is one of our principles. Next slide. And we know that we are able to understand and help cities understand interconnection to make choices to transition towards nature positive design. I think one of the keys is we also know the barriers that cities are facing, both in supply chain and our clients' knowledge base and resource availability, whether it's human resource, do they have people that are able to understand what we need to do to bring nature-based solutions together in cities, because it's often a highly collaborative, multidisciplinary team that's needed. Do we have time and money and people to be able to do this? So next slide, please. So in our nature-based economies, our communities, we have many people who supply different elements that we will use in our urban design and landscape design inside our buildings, outside our buildings, and part of our buildings and part of the urban landscape. Next slide. And we have nature-based enterprises who are like Moline and David, consultancy based and able to build solutions on the ground. Next slide. And we also know that stewardship in our cities is changing, particularly actually since COVID-19, because people weren't able to go out into our parks. We have parks behaving in different ways because of the stewardship changes and people responding to that change and enjoying more nature being into the parks. Next slide, please. So what we'd like to open up to you now and talk about how our nature-based enterprises can contribute to this transition and a healthy planet for people. How can we collaborate and share learning? And what would you like to see happening within our community here? And we're hoping to inspire our transition and then ask, would you like to be a featured enterprise or contribute a blog or a video or a topic for debate and discussion? And you know, how we can inspire positive cities for people and planet. You can contact me there and we'll open up the floor, but first just ask Isabel to give a short announcement for news in 2020. Next slide, please.
Is there a slide, Roisin, or am I just talking off the bat?
There you go.
There is. Oh, well done you. Hi, everybody. My name's Isabel Fletcher. I work with Horizon NUA, and we are the platform managers for Connecting Nature Enterprise platform. And we're also one of the partners in the overall Connecting Nature project, which is all around, our project is all about working with cities, 10 cities in the implementation, the large-scale implementation of nature-based solutions using a framework process that we have developed, and there's lots more information about that on our website. But as the project winds down now, we're heading into the last 6 months, we are taking to the road in 2022 with the Connecting Nature Roadshow, which is going to showcase some of the project innovations. It's going to take place in April next year. We're not quite sure where it's starting yet, but we know it's going to finish in Genk in Belgium on the 28th of April. And we hope to visit 5 cities somewhere in mainland Europe, as I say, ending in Genk, which is one of our cities in the project. One of the innovations we want to showcase when we go on the road, well, there's 3 altogether. There's this mobile green living room from Helix Flansen, which is one of our partners. We have this new sort of co-production process, arts-based co-production process that has been developed during the Connecting Nature project, and the spin-off enterprise Empath will be coming out to demonstrate that. And finally, then, we really want to showcase the nature-based enterprises that are members of the platform in each of the cities that we visit. Now, we haven't yet decided where we're going yet. The call is about to be issued in December to cities across mainland Europe. Probably, I'm going to give a rough idea. We hope to maybe start somewhere in the east, like Zagreb, and then work our way back to Genk, visiting 5 in total. Okay, but we'd be very keen when we know when we know where we're going, that any of the nature-based enterprises and individuals that are members of the platform would come and meet us and perhaps take part in some of the activity and the events that are going to be going on in the city, all around stimulating nature-based enterprises and creating an awareness within the city that you guys are out there, that you guys are delivering nature-based solutions, and that you guys are, you know, open to collaboration as such. So Roisin, as the ambassador for this community, will keep all of the members updated as we develop the programme for the Roadshow, and it will be, you'll find regular updates in the newsletters and things coming out via the platform newsletter on a monthly basis. So Roisin, thank you very much for letting me flag that, and back over to you.
Thank you. Thank
Roisin,
you.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, so who should we contact if we want to nominate a city to participate in the Roadshow?
Myself or Isabel or Fiona.
Okay, all right, so I'll send it to you.
Great.
I don't have Isabel's email.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've just sent it to you, David.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. So we'd like to open up the floor now, and once again, thank everyone for being here. There's lots of questions coming in on the chat, we could start with that. Let's see. I know there were questions about stewardship and the school, and maybe if Molin's there, do you want to speak about the school?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so basically the bioautonomy campus is a formula that we're developing not only for here in Malaga, where we're planning to build the first one. This is basically what we've identified the problem with the nature-based solutions for architecture and construction is not the function of it. We know it works. We know ancient civilizations use this on a large scale and it works. So the problem is education. How can we get this information out there to more architects, to more engineers, to more people involved in developing our societies, and help them to gain these skills? So it's basically a physical platform for every city to implement, where we basically make up a plan, a research plan and an education plan, and based on real projects, where we together with the city develop projects and we gather the data out of it as well, and make a plan in order to reuse this data in the next decade for even implementing it on a further larger scale. So that is the overall idea of the school, and we invite everyone to come and join us to make this happen. This is based on collaboration form. This is not something we're doing alone, and we want to see more nature-based enterprise to be involved in this and have the ability to share their skills and innovations together. And basically, just to sum the whole thing, it's a physical platform to accelerate the implementation of nature-based solutions. That's what we believe that is really missing in every city.
That's wonderful. And what do you need anything specifically from cities in order to set up this kind of school?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, first of all, we need to have a local team that will dedicate and be part of this project. We need universities. We need local research institutions that are interested to be part of this. We need investment. You know, we need all the resources possible to start developing and start designing it. And then the whole idea is to create it in such a way that for the next city, we can just take those blueprints and those data and easily replicate it to the next one. So anyone here who sees the opportunities to collaborate on this, or who knows a university or a city or a town that would be interested to have this dialogue, we're more than open.
Lovely. I'll just move to David. There's lots of questions coming in about mycelium. You might have seen them on the chat.
Yeah.
And could you answer those briefly? We're running slightly out of time, and finish with a closing comment before we come back to everyone. I can't believe we're actually coming up to 2 o'clock so quickly.
Yeah, well, when it comes to mushrooms and mycelium and that whole genera of life, they're very often used, especially for heavy metals and some of the most toxic chemicals. Now, we know that the EPA has a list of over 80,000 chemicals that are out there in the market, and even the EPA only knows about 3,000 of them. But there is a lot of ongoing research going on in the world about using mycelium and other plants, but especially mycelium, to clean up legacy toxic chemicals, radioactive waste, and biological contaminants and heavy metals. And we've successfully used them, for example, in the city of Rhode Island. We treated about I think it was 500 to 700,000 liters per day of high strength sewage. And Providence has a very large amount of heavy metals in their sewage. And we were able to take out about 95% of all the heavy metals from the waste stream in a greenhouse-based, nature-based solution with mycelium and plants. So we know it works even in cold climates like Rhode Island. And some people by the way, they work in cold climates. And the interesting thing about mycelium is a lot of the work they can do is you put it in a basement. They don't need light. In fact, they don't like light, many mycelium and mushrooms. And another interesting thing about mushrooms is we've been able to grow edible food on some of the waste media from these production processes. So there's cascade products that have a high economic value that you can produce from these waste processes, so that nothing is wasted. You can actually produce food from it. And I also want to refer to one of the pioneers in the field, Paul Stamets from Oregon. He's done a lot of work on this. And interestingly enough, his original research on using mycelium to clean wastewater was funded by the US Army. So for some reason, they're interested in that. So he's another really good resource. If you're interested, I can send you the link for Paul Stamets' work. And we've worked, by the way, I want to also say finally that we've worked with Paul Stamets in the past to use mycelium and integrate them into the whole value chain as an industrial ecology that's based on nature-based solutions. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to say to people, it's 2 o'clock now, so anyone that needs to go, thank you so much for joining us here. I'd just like to ask Aidan, could he put his question there? Aidan, could you come off mic? I can see you there, and put your question straight to people here.
Thanks, Roisin, and greetings to everyone. Yeah, I noticed the last point Roisin made was in regards to stewardship. So I actually work in what most of you guys would call a municipality parks department. So I'm interested in the shift, maybe away from a dependency culture around what the council will do to different models of governance of green space. I know the Horizon 2020 funded green space projects that look at this, but I'd like to be more aware of what's going on out there across the planet, but particularly in Europe.
Would anyone like to answer that, David or Moline?
Yeah, there's if you look at the projects that have already gotten funding from Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, there's an incredible number of different projects that have already been funded that are both in the space of using natural solutions for urban areas and rural areas. Actually, my problem is mapping all of these things that have already been funded and trying to understand how they interact and sort of capturing all the knowledge that's being produced as we speak from these nature-based solutions. And so I would like to invite people to work together to build a map, like a kind of a Gort cloud of all the things that are already going on and capturing that knowledge in a single place. And perhaps the Connecting Nature platform can build that map and help to produce like an overall guidebook of everything that's going on in Europe. That's really necessary because it's really an overflow at this point.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then some sort of map like that would prevent us continuously reinventing the wheel, because there's so much has been done, and it's just to share what has been done. But there are lots of case studies coming out in Connecting Nature platform does have. I think, and also like raising that point, it's why don't we, anyone who is doing this, who knows what's going on out there as nature-based enterprises, share this knowledge with us, and we will try and showcase it on the platform. It's absolutely what we're trying to do, just to share knowledge between each other, and then from there out to cities.
Yeah, very quickly, Roisin, on that. I mean, you're probably aware that the Nature of Cities David Maddox platform has got kind of, doesn't have mapping, but it would have a good inventory of, and there is work going on in Europe to map some of these. Just to answer David's question there. There may already be mapped, there's already mapping portals that are being developed.
And what are you impressed by?
Can you put up those, can you send those links to Connecting Nature?
I'll endeavor to do so, yeah.
All right. Cool.
Great stuff. So can we just close by asking Ziva's question on microclimate to our two panelists there? Ziva, do you want to put the question forward again? Yeah, microclimate is really critically important. I agree with Moyen, absolutely. It's important to take account in the design. Also because we know that as biologists have told us, we swim in a sea of microbiota in the air that we breathe and the water we drink. And those microbiota profiles and the fluxes of living systems that are in the air and water that surround us, it changes based on the general climate and the microclimate. And so if you're using the One Health system of how to think about a healthy environment, you really need to think about the microclimate, both inside the building and outside the building, because it affects everything from viruses and bacteria that are both beneficial and non-beneficial, all the way up to macrobiota like trees and humans. So yeah, doing the building physics modeling of the microclimate for all the way from the program to the construction stage and the operations is very important. Absolutely. And one of the ways to deal with that right from the beginning of a project is to talk to people who live in the microclimate and ask them their opinion of what are the challenges of dealing with the microclimate. Local people, local knowledge is really critically important in everything in doing these projects.
Thank you, David. If I may explain how we use the concept of microclimates in our buildings, is that, one must understand the problem with conventional building is that we just create a climate environment for us humans, and then outside that we have the outside climate. What we realized is that if we create a microclimate in between our living area and the outside world, we can reduce our heat losses significantly. So we intentionally, depending on what climate you are in, if you are in a climate where you consume a lot of energy to heat your building, then one way to reduce that heat loss naturally is to develop a greenhouse surrounding your building. Now, this can be strategically placed on one facade or several, depending on your climate once again. But basically, it acts as a buffered zone between our living area and the outside world. And we all know that heat transfers towards the cold. So our warm buildings, the heat inside of it, it just wants to escape out. But when we add a layer of microclimate, which in the real world, it's a greenhouse in our practices, then what you do is that you naturally slow down the heat loss. Now, the heat has to transfer through a whole nother zone before it can reach outside. So just by adding greenhouses to our existing buildings, we can reduce the heat loss significantly. And then we take advantage of that space. So now we have a greenhouse integrated in our building. So what we do is that we use the plants in the greenhouse to recycle our gray water. So the use of the greenhouses in our building has a very big importance, both for the heating and cooling system, but also for treating the sewage of the buildings.
So I wanted to ask Roshan, will the Connecting Nature project go forward after 2020?
Yes, yeah. After 2020, after it finishes in Genk, the Connecting Nature project will still be a platform. Yeah, both the enterprise platform.
Sorry, Roisin, the Connecting Nature project itself finishes at the end of May 2022, but the Connecting Nature enterprise platform will continue. And we hope to expand and keep it going over the next few years as well, and have it in other projects also.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so we need to close up here. I'm going to give the floor to Manka, but I would like to thank everybody so much for all their questions and interaction in the chat. If we didn't get to you, we'll try to come back to you afterwards as well. Just thank you so much for your time, and it was a super workshop. Wonderful thoughts and insights into right from taking this ancient knowledge into our modern day lives, and microfungal knowledge, and it's just amazing what's happening out there at different scales. Thank you so much. Franca, over to you.
Yeah, thank you all. The time is running out, so we have to wrap up this workshop. It was nice discussion, and we hope that we open up some new topics for further thinking on how to create an NBS for urban landscapes. This is the first such event for our community, and in the future we will organize even more of them. So we are really nice invited to have a more active role in the community. And we also invite you to respond to the challenges posted on the platform. Because by responding to the challenges, you can present your NBS products and continue the discussion. Thank you all for a nice workshop, and have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Bye.